Hello everyone, thanks so much for coming down. It's going to be so worth it. We've got some lots of things to discuss and I bet you all have questions. So if you have them, just start formulating them now and then there'll be a bit of time at the end and you can ask them, please. My name's Lily, I'm the assistant drama editor at Faber and we publish the playtext of G and we are very proud to do so. We're so delighted about it. This event is in partnership with Faber members. There are Faber's community of readers. It's free to join. You can sign up on our website faber.co.uk and it gets you access to discount codes and special editions, and if you're into books, theatre, film, music, it's really worth it. That's my pitch. I'll introduce you first. So Tife Kusoro. I've written round of applause a bit later, but you've already had one, but we'll do it again in a minute. Tife is a Nigerian-British writer, performer, poet, playwright, writer for screen. Her work for the stage has previously been shortlisted for the Alfred Fagan Award, the Verity Bargate Award, the Women's Prize for Playwriting, and this play, G, won the George Devine Award for Most Promising Playwright. That's where I've written round of applause. Doing I first heard your name in about 2019, and I was doing a programme at the Royal Court with their kind of literary and participation departments called the Script Panel, and someone kind of mentioned your name, and then a couple of other people were like, oh my god, she's so good, and then a few other people were like, she's so great, oh my god, and I was like, who's this playwright that everyone's so obsessed with? And then flash forward 5 years later, and your agent sent us your play, and we love being sent new work and think it's so important to publish it so that kind of young writers can kind of get out into the world and more people can access their work by reading the plays if they can't come and see them and stuff. But we can't publish everything we read, but this time I was like, I'm excited about this one because I feel like it's going to be good because I've heard good things and I've seen your name on the shortlist. And I read it and I thought it was so brilliant. The way it kind of mixes brilliantly observed naturalism and the way you have with music and the music of speech and the rhythm of speech and the way you can write that combined with this kind of metaphorical, creepy strangeness, kind of to bring those two worlds together into one play, I thought was amazing. So it's really exciting to have you on the Faber list, to be doing this event in partnership with the Royal Court here. So you've said that you wrote this play for your brother, after conversations you'd have with him about kind of black boys not being seen or not being seen properly for who they are. Has he seen it? Did he like it?
I was gonna invite him to press night, but then I decided not to last minute because I was like, oh no, it's too much pressure. I think I got nervous with industry and stuff. He's gonna watch it, I think maybe on the 5th. I hope that he would like it. I think that he wouldn't have expected me to write something that would ever be considered horror because I'm a really scared person and I don't watch horror films. I'm just terrified of them. So he'd be like, wow, how did you do this? But I think maybe I just channeled all my inner fear into the writing. But no, I hope that he would like it. Yeah.
We'll find out.
Yeah, I'll give you the feedback. Yeah.
I wanted to talk a bit later about kind of theatre that's not like theatre. But how did you get into theatre and then into playwriting?
I really enjoyed drama in school, and I wanted to be an actor, and it was my favourite subject. I felt really like myself in that space. And then I think maybe when I was 16, I watched Chewing Gum on Channel 4, and it was the first time that I'd ever seen anyone that felt really like me, in that capacity, and I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. And then I researched about it and read that she wrote it first as a play, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna write a play. And so that was how I wrote the first play that I ever wrote, but then playwriting kind of stuck from there, and I just kept writing more and submitting stuff, and I just really enjoyed it. It felt really, I don't know, it felt unnaturally natural to me. I found it more fun than any other kind of writing that I had done. So I sort of, that was sort of how I got into playwriting, and then just from like submitting to theatres and like joining writers groups and like doing writers programs, that sort of got me into getting my foot in the door and like getting a commission and stuff.
Let's go zooming into G specifically. What was it like seeing this play go from the page to the stage in rehearsals? Any conversations you had with Monique about it?
Yeah, it was really amazing. It felt really like surreal, I think, to like watch the characters come to life. And also I think with the actors that we have are just incredible. And I think like from day one, it really felt like they like inhabited like the souls of the characters, and it really felt just so natural. So it was like, it felt like amazing to see it and to watch it like be happening in the room. I think that was the part of the process that I enjoyed the most. It felt like I could just like the world was alive and I could just like watch it. Monique and I spoke a lot about what we wanted the world of the play to feel like. We wanted it to feel like eerie, but also sort of like grounded in the friendship of the three characters, and for it to feel like the real world, but also like a little like really weird and sort of like mysterious and like atmospheric. So we talked a lot about how to make that happen, and a lot of our references were like Black Mirror and like Get Out and stuff, just stuff that feels just like strange.
Did you speak to the designers about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I think also like watching the set and the lighting all come together made it also feel really, really real, because it does feel like a play where all of that plays a part. Like the lighting feels part of the story with like the CCTV and the trainers and stuff. So it was nice to have those conversations and to like watch it become real.
Can you tell us about your influences on this when writing this particular play? In the published script, you've like got a little bit that says like my influences specifically, and they are Antoinette Nwando's play, Passover, and Jay Huss's album, Big Conspiracy. How are those your influences on this play, and how does that, and also if anyone doesn't know those pieces of art?
When I started writing this play, I had just seen Passover at the Kiln Theatre, and I remember watching it and feeling just like hit by it. I found the world that was in it like really strange and really interesting and really dynamic. Like I loved the dynamics between the characters, and Passover is a play about these two guys who are sort of like in this surreal kind of world. It's inspired by Waiting for Godot, where they're just sort of like waiting for something like better than what they have, like waiting. In that place, like they're trying to get off the block, but it ends in a really bleak way, and they never really get to, and that really hurt, I think, to watch that, and it just like in a way that I've never felt about theatre before. Like it really hurt to go on the journey with those characters, and to like for it to sort of like be ripped away, and I think because I was really interested in the world of that play, I sort of was thinking about like how to sort of like borrow the stuff that I liked, but maybe create a world of my own where the characters do get to have some glimmer of hope at the end. I think that felt really like important, and so I feel like this part of this play felt like a response to that. And the play, this G has like a sort of like that surreal, like weird world in it that in the script is more developed, and the characters are sort of like, like they're waiting for the big light, the proper light. And so I took a lot of stuff from Passover about them like waiting for something bigger. And then with Jay Huss, I just really love Jay Huss and his music. I think I think that it like somehow is both like light and dark, when I started writing like draft one of this play, I would think about like what kind of music would they listen to, like who would they want to be. And Joy and Kai in draft one were like really into music, and they wanted to be like, one of them was like a producer and one of them wanted to be a rapper, and like J Hus was their like big inspiration. So that sort of has sort of stayed with the vibe of the play.
That's interesting what you said about Passover, actually, just like cycling back, because I know that she like rewrote the ending of that play a couple of times and then like moved it back to being bleaker again like later. I think it's so interesting to like pick up on that and kind of take it into a different context as well, like into like London and to give it a bit of hope as well. I wanted to ask you a bit about sort of circling back a little way about genre, because you said your brother didn't expect you to write horror. And I think this play is a mix of so many different genres. It's got comedy, it's got kind of mystery, it's got horror, and you like build them all into something. There's this kind of like, people think of theatre as like, I don't know, like literary fiction or something, like this kind of like, I don't know, like toast flavoured, like kind of good for you, like thing, and forget that like it's about storytelling and world building. And I know you thought about genre because you said that you've described this play as an Afro-Surrealist play. Can you talk a little bit more about Afro-Surrealism, about like how you were writing into that genre or other genres?
I feel like more and more I just enjoy stuff that is like a little bit weird, stuff that feels like it's the real world but like slightly not, or like slightly like left. Weird stuff happens, or like the characters are experiencing things that feel really out of the ordinary. It feels like a fun way to explore ideas that are like everyday, and I think that I did want to write into that for G. And I think I describe it as Afro-Surrealist just because like someone described Afro-Surrealism as like, especially when Black writers write things that are surreal, as sort of it mirrors the experience or the strangeness of living in the world, in a world that is like that others you. And I do think that it feels interesting to like write things that are metaphorical about things that are real. So yeah, I just think it just interests me more and more nowadays. And I think I always think about like, how can I make something a little bit more weird or interesting or surprising, just because that's the kind of stuff that I would like to watch as well, like stuff that feels a little bit out of the ordinary. You
said in another interview I read that you'd spoken to the playwright Nazareth Hassan about liminality, and I know they wrote a play Vanta Black. That's the only play of theirs that I've read. But can you talk a little bit about the concept of liminality in relation to like this play or like those ideas? I remember like speaking to Nazareth was really a big part of like this play advancing in terms of like the style of it. They really encouraged me to try and be experimental, and to like not force the characters to do anything, but to sort of like observe them in their natural habitats and just like watch what they do, watch what happens. And so I think that in the first draft, it was sort of like, I sort of tried to have like a narrative and like the scenes and what the characters are doing, they're going somewhere. But I think as I went on, it felt more like, okay, let me just like see what they do when nothing's happening, and see what they talk about when they exist in this sort of space where maybe they're just waiting to go home after school, or waiting after an after school club and stuff like that. Those spaces where you don't know what's gonna happen, but you just sort of, just like stay with it and see what does. I think that made it more interesting to write, because I haven't written like that before. Can you tell us a bit about writing these characters? Maybe starting with Bateface, the Gullywan himself. And then let's talk maybe a little bit.
I really, really enjoyed writing them and like staying with them. Bateface, like in earlier drafts, he was just like a presence that was there. He never like actually came into the play. But actually writing him as a character that was physical, I feel like brought a nice like sort of tense dimension to the play. I enjoyed, I think, also discovering who he was too, because it felt also like a discovery to me that he was good, or that he actually was a protective force over the characters. Because initially I think I wanted to have this, I guess, metaphor of like this supernatural being that is like causing all the weird things to happen to the characters, and that like reflects, you know, like society and stuff like that. But then he became much more like real and much more like of a way to explore like how it feels sometimes, like if when the world is projecting so much onto you, you can start to like take it in, like you can start to think that it's true when it's not, and they discover the truth of Baitface also like as the story goes on. So I enjoyed like discovering him. I think with Kai, Kaleem and Joy, the thing that has always been present to me from the start was just their friendship, and like the like bounciness between them, and how they like love each other but also hate each other, how they can like at once like sometimes they see each other and sometimes they just really don't. And I think that's true to just human beings in general, but like true to, I think, like adolescent friendship sometimes. So I liked that. I liked making them feel like they have light and dark in them.
I definitely, when I read it, I felt like that affection between them. They're kind of on the cusp of adulthood, and they're trying to find like a form of masculinity that like feels safe to them, and also like brilliantly portrayed by those actors.
Yeah, Khadisha and Selt are there. You should give them a round of applause.
That was my last question for you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Let's open it out if anyone's got any questions.
So in the text, I think I only actually wrote Baitface's presence maybe like, there was maybe like 4 or 5 scenes where I was like, he definitely has to be here. But in the room, Danai, who plays Baitface, who's just incredible. Oh yeah, I didn't realize Danai round of applause also. Oh, and Ebenezer. Sorry, I couldn't see you guys before. Danai, who just plays Baitface just incredibly. He and Chloe, the movement director, sort of, like really worked, I guess, on Baitface like has this quality of like really like vulnerability that came out, I think, that maybe I didn't even see when I was writing the script, where even I feel sometimes when I watch it that by the end I'm like, I know who this person is, I know who he was, like he isn't just some like scary supernatural force, but he's like a person, or was a person who's sort of like been, I guess, like walking in this like liminal space and being this protective force. I think, the movement was something that just was a joy to watch happen. Even the movement of like when they're in the weird like CCTV world with the red lights and stuff, and they're glitching, like that was all stuff that I didn't think of. But then, of course, in the room when we talk about what does it mean when these characters are in this like surreal space, like what's the weight in their bodies, like how do we reflect that this isn't the real world, like all of that stuff came out. That has such a, it goes beyond what I wrote. Yeah, I wanted it to be chopped up in terms of the night in question scenes where they're being accused of this crime, but they don't know what happened on the night in question. I wanted the play to have a feeling of, because they don't know what happened or what they were doing, that neither do we as an audience watching it, and we sort of have to piece it together as the play goes on, and hopefully like by the end it feels like the puzzle has come together in a way, even if you're like thrown off or confused the whole way through it. I think it was interesting to like give the play a quality of like feel what the characters are feeling. Like they are disoriented, they are they feel like lost, they don't know what's happening. So maybe it's okay for the audience to also feel that way sometimes. But yeah, it was important to like make sure that by the end it sort of comes together so that you don't feel like you've just like been confused the whole time for no reason. Hopefully it works. But yeah, I think I wanted it to be non-linear. I think the characters came first, definitely. I always sort of felt like there are these like three like cheeky boys and stuff that like have fun with each other, and I think the world and the like concept of like walking under a pair of trainers and becoming cursed came later, and came as a way to, when I was thinking like how can I make this interesting, or how can I write a play about three friends where they're in an intense situation or in like a weird world. So I think the characters definitely came first. I love spirituality, and I think it always like sort of drips into my writing in some way or another. And I think with this play, I think because I was trying to like lean into surrealism and like urban myths, and like creating this sort of weird world, the sort of spirituality and of Baitface being this mysterious force was like important to lean into. And I think something that didn't come up while I was writing, but when the play had come together, I was like, oh, this actually makes sense, is there's a concept in Yoruba religion, and it's the concept of like your ori, which is like your inner like spiritual, like your spiritual head, and is like something that is like sacred to you and that should be protected. And I think then when I thought about the play in that context of like these boys, they have this like inner spirit, and Baitface is encouraging them to like protect it from all of these projections from the outside and all of this like what society deems you as that may not be what you are and stuff, to like protect your truth. I think it was something that I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know that was in there, but it kind of is. But then maybe that's me reading too much into like my own writing. But I think I love when like expectedly or unexpectedly that things that I believe like come up in my writing, because naturally like that will always happen. It's called G because I just also, again, like the mystery and like the, oh, like sort of, you know, it's G. But in the first draft of the play, it was like split into 3 acts, and all the 3 acts started with the letter G, or they were titled things that started with G. So I think the first act was called like, I don't know, one was called Gully and one was called like Gospel. And I can't remember what the third one was called. But I guess this idea of like G can mean different things. And to the characters, it's like a term of endearment. But it can also mean like whatever this like, you know, godlight that Baitface is telling them to protect in themselves is. I wanted it to like to feel like it can mean whatever you want it to mean. The sort of motif of like surveillance and these cameras that are like constantly watching the stage was there from the start, just to create a sense of like there's a threat, and these boys are like living sort of innocently and just like going about their days and stuff, but there is constantly this like sense of being perceived as something or another by the outside, or maybe being seen as something that you're not. So that was always there, and I think watching it come to life with like the lighting as well, like the red light, I think it became more clear on stage that like actually this does feel, it makes it feel like eerie, and it makes it feel like there is a threat and they are being watched and stuff. It's definitely something that I tried to write in the text, but with the tech, and the sort of like atmospheric like sound and light and stuff became more obvious and more present. I think it was like, it felt like in writing these three characters and in discovering who they were, and also like in the explorations of like boyhood and masculinity, and what that feels like for the characters, that it was also important to like have a different like perspective of masculinity or a different experience of masculinity, and how those, I feel like all three of them are very different in their masculinity. Like Kaleem is sort of the boy that is like perceived as this like man who is dangerous, and then Kai is sort of a boy that is that puts a lot of expectations on himself. It felt like in discovering who those characters are and then also creating them to be different, that seeing how they interact with each other and what that teaches them about each other and about the world that they're in was something that was interesting to discover, and also I felt like would give the narrative and the experience like more color and maybe more layers. Actually, like a lot of work went into that. I feel like I always sort of like try and go really deep into the characters before like starting to write. And I think in a play where sometimes it can feel like the dialogue is kind of like maybe minimal sometimes, or the scenes like change really quickly, and you don't get a long time with the characters in the scenes, that I think it helped to have built them up before, because it felt like I knew who they were, and so I was just writing them naturally, and all of the colors that they have like come through, hopefully, even though the scenes are like short and snappy and stuff. Unfortunately, there's a lot I know about the characters that isn't in the script, because it's like, but I still hope that in a way that you can still sort of see that in the ways that they interact with each other. And also like a lot of the work was the actors, like a lot of that is like what they bring to the characters who they found in the room. And it's just like incredible work, I think, to be able to make them feel so alive when sometimes on the page it's like, yeah, it's minimal. Yeah, so again, round of applause, guys. Yeah.
Circle that applause back round to you.